Well done, Hamish.
Now we are recording. And for Hamish to be at the stage where he is wanting to crawl is really, really cool. We have got some really great things that we can do with him. And gravity is just such a tough force for these kids that I'll tell you the things that I did with Albie early on. Number one, I can see he's perfectly good on tummy time, right? So he's angle this down a little bit so you can see better. So if you lay on your back and have Hamish here, I know it's the area of drool danger, but it's a good place to get a feel for him, and then lift him up, and you can angle then his arms onto your chest and his knees onto your belly. So
Okay.
this is a one-person thing, but by doing this, you can feel his recruitment process.
Oh yeah.
And you can start letting him go, and then holding him back on again. Start letting him go and hold back on. Yeah, exactly. And it means that you have a real understanding. You get a feedback off his arms, and you can see when he's going to push against you and when he just can't do it anymore.
He's enjoying it.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Brilliant. So that's one thing. Now, the arms are really easy for him to move, relatively, because he can see what's going on with the arms and he gets an understanding of it. But the hips, they're often, I see that they're often like this, and Albie was doing this as well. And it's really difficult to explain to him to bring the hips even up into a 4-point kneeling position, because the 4-point kneeling is going to be really, really worthwhile. We need him to understand the benefit of opening up at the hip joint, and that's what's going to give him the propulsion to start crawling. Now, Albie never really properly crawled. He can crawl now, but we worked on him for so long to try and get him to crawl. And this then might be a 2-person job. I'm going to show you the dog sling before we go anywhere. Can you guys get a towel or a tea towel sort of size? Tea towel might not be strong enough, but that sort of size is perfect. And it's a 2-person job.
All right, we've got a tea towel.
Right. So I've got this piece of kit here. It's like a 12-pound dog carrying sling. It's a strip of Velcro or strip of fabric, Velcro together, and you put it around the chest of your dog in order to lift the dog back up into the car when it can't, the old dog sort of thing. This is for a medium-sized dog, and that would be a perfect size for Hamish. So if we lay this out and we get Monkey in here, without even doing it up, this is what you can do with a tea towel. You can just support his torso, and even the width of your hands, you can get a sense of, do we need to give more support to the top end or the bottom end? So if Dad holds the towel, and Francesca, if you let Dad hold the towel,
you hold the towel,
and obviously you've got to put more pressure on the head end of the towel, and then you, Francesca, can hold onto his knees. That's it. And you push the knees away, pull them away behind, so that we put him into a proper 4-point kneeling position, but let off enough resistance on the towel that he has to put his hands down, or that he wants, that's it, perfect.
Yeah.
And then you can, with the pair of you, one of you can be working the legs one at a time, and the other person could be pulling him forwards.
Are you pulling forward?
That's it. And he moves his hands automatically. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm not holding him much there either. That's great.
Yeah.
Just enough to give him a bit of support.
Exactly, because gravity is just so strong for these people. That's really cool. Now, one thing that you've got to look out for is that Albie did really quickly is he frog hopped. He went like this. He didn't go to full extension, but he just came up to here and then did both legs. And it got him around, but it's not the correct movement pattern. We need that one leg, other leg, one leg, other leg, and the opposite hand moving at the same time. And Francesca, at the moment, if you look at his hip joint,
Yeah.
you're working within this range.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we want him to, it's advanced, you know, get him used to this movement in the first place. But in a few days, you need to start thinking about pulling the knee away behind him.
Pulling
Okay.
back.
Does that make sense? So you pull it back so that he gets used to having the leg behind it and therefore using his buttock to make part of the movement rather than just using the hip flexors. When you see this video back, you'll see that he is flexed at the hip flexor. Oh, good elephant standing, Hamish. Really cool.
That actually.
Bigger. Back a bit.
There you go. Right, buddy.
All right.
So I'm kind of
Just giving him more or less support. He's getting tired.
Yeah. I think he gets tired quite quickly.
Absolutely, and you think about that big noggin on a tiny little neck. It's a tough combination, but that's really good work. And what you can do with him lying on his back then is you can mimic those actions. So if you take left hand and right foot and move them together, left and right foot and left hand and move them together, and just so that he understands that the opposites can work together, because that's the crawling action.
You like that, don't you? You like that, don't you?
Yeah, really good. Does he have any signs of scoliosis?
No signs of it.
Awesome.
Apparently.
Yeah, no, that's great. So spinal movements, I have a lot of people that have scoliosis that come in for Pilates, and we've got forward flexion, backward extension, rotation, lateral flexion are the spinal movements that we have. And if we work on all of those movements, then the spine has a chance of staying balanced and healthy. And it is even worth being passive in these movements. So if you put Hamish between your legs like so you pin his hips in place, and then you can just literally rotate his chest and shoulders by holding underneath the armpits. It's always more fun if there's a toy that moves around with him, so that his head goes in those directions as well. And Francesca, you can feel how you're twisting his spine, right? Now, you're not going to break it. You can go quite far by twisting his spine. So to create some movement in the spine is really good. And then to do lateral flexion so that he's facing forwards, but just bending sideways.
Okay.
Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. Look, it's Monkey. Look, it's Monkey.
Monkey.
Awesome. And those two moves then make a really big difference for us as parents, because he is going to do flexion when he curls up, and he's going to do extension when he does tummy time, but he's going to not really do lateral flexion and rotation. They'll avoid that until they start becoming comfortable into the one seat and they sort of sit one way. That's the lateral flexion that's going to turn into a scoliosis.
Okay.
So if he wants to sit one way, make sure that there is some incentive for him to sit the other way as well.
Okay.
And simple things like,
he has a dominant side when he is sitting up. So
yeah, exactly. So try and work out what can you do to influence him to use the other side.
Yeah.
Can you put his favorite toy on the other side? Can you make him reach with the other hand? Just those sort of simple things. When Albie always used to turn his head to the left, so we would start putting the toys on the right when he was lying down. turn him around in the bed so that he turned the other way. I've got a funny video of him very early on. So he's lying on his front, far too young to lift his head, but he was able to turn his head. So he didn't want to lie that way, and he just goes, ching, and I would gently turn his head, and he goes, ching. So, just look at what the imbalances are, what his favorite things are, and try and do the same the other way, if it's at all possible. Now, there's a debate, and I've discussed this with our physios about dominant and ambidextrous movements. They do have a challenge in gripping things in the first place. So we might be better off letting them be more right-hand dominant or whatever they want to be than training them to be ambidextrous. As a Pilates teacher, I would always aim to be ambidextrous, but it might be too much of a challenge for them already. Okay. But certainly if he's starting to sit in the one direction, that you've got to deal with, because the bones are so plastic that they will form into whatever shape they are forced. And if you find that he resists when you do the lateral flexion and the rotations, that's really good, because he's actually using his muscles in those planes against your force. Okay. So if that's to be encouraged, and after a while then he'll be able to work against your forces rather than just resisting. We have a power plate. I bought a power plate, and at the moment we're concentrating on working his feet, because he's standing and walking around. But when he was at this stage, I would pin him onto the power plates. I would sit on it, and I would do the rotations and the lateral flexions on the power plate, because the vibration causes the muscles to react. So if they react in a different shape, then they are going to respond throughout that range of motion. So if it's at all possible to get hold of a power plate, even a cheap one from Argos is going to make a difference, because you're not, if you're using it for these guys, it doesn't matter if it doesn't need to be the best quality. Just that small vibration is a really, really good thing.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Is there anything else that you guys have questions on that you're?
I guess, I mean, the end goal, or the short-term goal, is just to get him moving as quickly as possible to burn off energy, basically. And
give him some experiences.
Give him some adventure and get him on walking as soon as possible. That's always the end goal, isn't it? Whether it's
absolutely.
A baby
what I would suggest with walking, though, is that the physios are really keen to say, right, this baby's 18 months, he should be walking. And so resist the temptation to go by chronological age and try not to skip stages. Yes. The crawling is so important for walking, right? And even then, if he gets strong enough to bum shuffle for a bit and then to come up to standing, it's tempting to start giving him walking. But if you get him to crawl under tables or crawl through collapsible tunnels and stuff like that, so that the crawling is worth his while and is fun, it puts in a muscle memory that is going to be really useful for other things later on. It helps with knife and fork. It helps with speech. It helps with marching. I was in the Australian military, and the guys in basic training that can't march, apparently they never crawl. So it's a skill that you learn that is useful for climbing a ladder and just doing other things. So it's tempting to jump to walking, but don't worry, it will come. I can see Hamish is really active. I've seen now a lot of PWS kids at this age that are not as active as this. So he will walk, without a doubt. Don't be in a rush about it.
I think we've noticed quite a difference. He went on to the growth hormones about 5 months ago.
3 months.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's helped.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think the availability of the research and the specialists is becoming more prevalent each and every day.
Yeah. Is Albie on?
He is. He has been from quite early on as well. We have a totally different outcome for these kids to what the doctors, what they read about in their manuals. They're reading about kids that were born 20, 30 years ago, and it's a different outcome for these ones. Dr. Miller in the States, we went to see her in Florida, and if you look out for her, she will be at the conference this year in September, I think it is. Just do more research outside of the NHS. The NHS are excellent, but what we found with our docs was that we went to Dr. Miller, came back with some suggestions, offered them, and they said, yeah, fine, that sounds good. She knows what she's talking about. So they have tried stuff with Albie that they wouldn't otherwise have suggested, and it's been really useful. So be proactive with.
I've listened to her stuff on like the link on YouTube and things. I think it's YouTube, but it was yeah, she's good. Okay.
Yeah, she's really good. But yeah, I can see in Hamish, I recognise the desire to have the hips here.
Yes.
When what he needs is the hips here, or the knee underneath the hips, ultimately to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. Because the most regular kids, they find that this is easy enough. Like, man, I'm amazed when I pick up. We have mums and babies that come in for mums and babies classes at my studio, and you pick up this 3-month-old nugget of a child that's you could just feel it's all muscle, and yeah, you could fold it either way, and they stay solid, and then you put them down, and they're already doing this before they've done any training. Where our kids are like this from day one, It's like, so to get the skydiving that most kids do is a real it's a real progress for us.
Yeah.
So he finds it easier to be here because it's fewer muscles are needed to hold him here, and it's safe, and he gets away with this. He doesn't need to crawl to that toy because we will go and get it for him. And that we need to train them that it's worth their while to start actually reaching out.
Okay.
And the hip flexion, I'll stand up in the background here. When we become adults, if we, oh no, you guys stay sitting, it's cool. We want to be able to do flexion, the extension of the hip, so that we can walk properly and use the back of the body here. Most people walk with their legs out in front, and if we don't train this early on to be possible, then it just causes back issues later on. And these kids, when they grow up into adults and there is more structure to work against gravity, the weaker they are later on, the harder it's going to be. So the stronger and the more the range we can give them now, it's going to make things different.
I think anything that we can do now to help his development, we're obviously going to try. And I think the wonderful thing about Pilates is the use of different tools and tricks of the trade, basically, like that dog carrier. It's just stuff like that we'd never think to do ourselves.
If you also, when lockdown ceases and you get contact to a Pilates studio, put me in contact with them, and I will share with that teacher everything that I've done with Albie, because the apparatus in the studio is phenomenal for these kids. We just I put it onto my Facebook page. I think it was yesterday morning. Albie sang like 3-word endings to The Wheels on the Bus, right? If you didn't know the song and you didn't know the kid, you'd never understand what he's saying. So it's only because we know. But he sang better than what he has ever done because he was lying down, and the Pilates equipment allows you to exercise while lying down, and it means that gravity doesn't have the same effect. As looking at Hamish now, I think the most important thing is to get him to crawl with the opposites But once you have that under control, get back to us and we'll look at him again, and we'll see what is the next most important thing after that.
That's
That's
exciting.
great. Yeah, really, really happy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
So dedicate
Yeah.
some time to him. Yeah. It's
So
great.
you're welcome to join me at 3 o'clock. It's going to be a similar. I will absolutely talk about the dog carrying sling because it's been a game changer for us. But I'll have different sort of baby dolls and things like that, and some of it will be before your stage, and some of it will be after. But I'm going to record that as well, and so you'll see it through the FPW app.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to stick him down for a nap now, so
Yeah.
we'll see if we make it. But absolute blessing to have you. So thank you very
No
much.
worries. Real
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience to start with.
Oh no.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Good one.